Hey, everybody. Thanks for checking out my broadcast today. My name is Jonathan, and today is day 192 of my 3 year challenge to get my health and overall wellness under control. If this is your first time checking out my stream, like I said, my name's Jonathan. I am 39 years old. I'm married and have some few kids. I have been overweight my whole life, and in October of last year, I really had gotten to the highest point in or the most I weighed throughout the pandemic there in 2020, and so I decided it was time I needed to do something. So I started this video series here. A big reason I started this was to help keep me accountable, because I found that a lot of times I've started diets in the past, and if I don't tell anybody, then it doesn't generally succeed in any way. And also, I know that there's other people that are going through the same thing. Like I said, I've been dealing with this my whole life, and so I thought that maybe sharing my experience might help other people with what they have going on as well. Um, so and I, hey, Carrie, stopping in saying hi. I hope you guys are having a good day today. Uh, the um, the other thing is that a lot of times, I've lost weight before, and I've done a good job at sticking to a plan. But once I get to my goal, I don't ever kind of stick to it, or I can never find a way to stick to it. And so that is something that I wanted to commit to doing this for a very long time, not just until I lose the weight I need to lose. And so I've committed to doing this for 3 years, to doing something, to make my health a focus for 3 years. Regardless, when I started this, I had no idea what I was going to do other than fast for 30 days when I started. And then, yeah, the other thing is I've always set what I thought was kind of a goal, or a good goal for me. I'd be happy if I was back down to 285 pounds, or 300, under 300. And that's just not a good enough goal. I need to set a goal that is going to put me in a position where I am healthy, not just no longer morbidly obese, but to be to a point where I'm healthy, a healthy weight. And so I decided that I needed to commit to this, to get down to to lose 300 pounds, or to get down under 220 pounds. So yeah, like I said, today is day 192. If anybody has any non-scale victories they'd like to share, I'd love to hear those. Let me know how you're doing on your diet. Uh, or if you have any questions for me, I would love to hear them as well. Yesterday, um, went home. We had a decent dinner. I'm trying to think. I always forget what we eat because Carrie's the one that takes care of everything. But we had a dinner that we have had in the past. I'll have to think about it. But yeah, it was a good night. Uh, didn't have a lot of snacks around the house. We've kind of gone through our snack food, and I've talked about that in the past. It's probably a good thing for me that we don't have a lot of extra snack food in the house. But generally, if we have some cashews, I'll try to grab some of those. And we just haven't had them. Um, they, yeah, and so it's just, yeah, I mean, it's nice to not be snacking, or to be able to survive without snacking. But what I was gonna say is I have been snacking on some things, but I've been eating a lot of oranges or apples and bananas. I generally try to go through um and a cycle, have some oranges, and then have an apple, and then have a banana. And so I know I had at least one of each of those last night. So it was called Mega Veggie Chili last night, and it was good. It was a good dinner. And then Carrie does have a non-scale victory here. It says uh, Well, I mean, okay. So she says, not a non-skill victory. I went to the doctor for the first time in years. She was totally on board with this way of eating. That's great. I did talk to Carrie a little bit about it after she left the doctor's office, and she was really excited that the doctor had heard of a lot of the same doctors that we heard, that we're listening to, and that she yeah, she was just very receptive and interested to see, how things are, how things go for us on this type of diet. So that was great for Carrie there. Caleb stopping in saying hi. Hi, Caleb. I hope you're doing okay. You were here at the end of last week, I think. I'm not sure if you were fasting or not, but I know. I hope your weekend went well and you're doing well today. Carrie saying the chances of having it again tonight are high. Yes, the mega veggie chili. It was good. In fact, at one point, I asked Carrie, I was like, there's no salt in this, just because, and it wasn't that it tasted salty, it's just that it had such a large uh, flavor profile. There was so much going on in it. I believe she said that she had put jalapenos in it, which I think she had in the past, but maybe not enough. But it was very spicy and it was really good. Yeah, I remember that. Now that we're talking about it, uh, so the I'm trying to see. Uh, Carrie says even better today. She had it for lunch. Yes, that's one of the things that we are finding with this diet, that you just kind of end up making a big bowl or a big pot of something and then just eating it till it's gone, and then um, making something new and then eating that for a day or two, which is really not bad. It's something that is, for me, it's so weird because I eat so much. I used to eat so much food, and then, but it was almost like a running thing, like that. I wouldn't eat the leftovers much, and so um, it's kind of weird. Now we're eating leftovers constantly, and it's almost better tasting when we have leftovers because the flavors have had a chance to kind of mix better in the bowl or over time. But yeah, we're eating. Um, we'll have this mega chili for a couple days, and then we'll have maybe some miso for a couple days, and then pasta and stuff, and we have some other things we sprinkle in as well. Like Carrie made some pasta sauce, and she also made some dressing, so that we can mix in salads, and just kind of, tomato sauce and pasta. Or we sometimes, like the other day for lunch, we had baked potato with some salad dressing, kind of give it some creaminess, and that was really good, for those things for us. Let's see. Kind of all over the place today. It's Tuesday. I got weigh in Wednesday tomorrow. I am, not nervous because it doesn't really, um, it's not like I'd be gaining a bunch of weight, but I know that I'm not going to have the same weight loss this week that I've had over the past 3 or 4 weeks, and I'm okay with that because, for one, it was my birthday last week, and so I did have, I didn't have anything that wasn't on our diet or part of what we can eat, but part of our diet is that, there's no restriction on volume, and so I probably ate a little bit more of the brownie cake that Carrie had made than maybe I should have. But again, in the 3 weeks prior to this week, I've lost over 12 pounds. So, and I could have a lot. I mean, it's not, yeah, I'm not that far off from where I was. It's just, I know that uh, since last Wednesday, I've been up on the scale, and that's kind of been different for me for the past 3 weeks, usually, or for the past 3 weeks. I get on the scale and then I check it like on Friday, and I'm down from Wednesday, and that wasn't the case this week. So it's a little bit frustrating, and I've talked about it before that I do need to uh, just stay away from the scale, especially when when it's frustrating like this, because uh, you know, 4 weeks ago or 5 weeks ago, I was really struggling with weight loss, and it was frustrating then. But I got through that period, and then 4 weeks later, I'm 12, 15 pounds lighter. So I know it's just going to take time, and I'll get through that eventually. But it's just frustrating to be dealing with it to now. But let's see. So yeah, we last night we were trying to figure out. Carrie's actually been listening to a podcast, which is kind of cool, that she's been going on. Very excited about. The guy talks a lot about about gut biome, and just about what you eat and what effect it has on you. And so we were talking about that stuff last night, and we were looking for something to do before bed, and we were like, well, let's try to find a movie. And uh we thought about watching Game Changers, which we've already watched before. But I was like, well, why don't we go to Game Changers and then watch something that's like similar to this, or people who watch this would recommend this. And we ended up watching a movie that I'm pretty sure I've seen parts of before, like in YouTube clips and things like that. And also, I've had people that I've listened to, or I watch their channels, that they've referenced the movie What the Health. And so that is what we watched last night. It's a good movie. Again, it continues to um, just reinforce the things that we have been uh, experiencing, and just the feelings that we've been having about this diet and this way of eating. And so it was just good. There was a few other things that there's people I've listened to that have talked about how much like pus is in dairy, which is really weird. That there's like pus, and like in the movie they kind of show like when animals have like these big abscesses of whatever growing on them, or these pus filled things, that when they're going through the slaughter line, like after they're dead, uh if it's got this pus, they just cut it open and let the pus seep out, and it just keeps going down the line, which is kind of gross. Well, that was with just the meat processing, but then like dairy products themselves, they talk about um, there being a lot of pus in that. What One of the things that surprised me they talked about in it was uh, that milk and dairy, when it's processed in your body, it creates a chemical. It started with a C, and it ended in morphine. So essentially, it produces a very low level morphine uh, that your your body creates that when you eat dairy, and that may and just the way they talked about that and explained that was interesting, and it was not something I had really uh, known before, or had anybody ever talk about before. Was and that leads to probably some of the cravings for dairy and milk and things like that. Carrie says the podcast that she was listening to is called The Exam Room. She was talking about it today. One of the facts that she kind of texted me that the guy was talking about in the podcast, The Exam Room, was that last year, twice as many people died from heart disease as there was that died from the coronavirus. And so, um, Carrie says it's casein morphine or casein morphine. Yeah. Um, but yeah, the the guy in the podcast said that last year twice as many people have died from heart disease as they died from the coronavirus, which is, I don't think, a surprising number. I think that would probably a normal or a, you know, the amount of people that we would have imagined dying from heart disease probably died from heart disease last year, maybe even less. But it's still twice as many. And in fact, in the movie, I believe it was heart disease, they said that they could take four like 747 jumbo airliners. If you were to crash four of them every hour of every day, that's how many people die from heart disease. Uh, and that's just a wild number of people. And it feels weird, like we should be doing everything we can to reduce that number if we're doing all these other things to stay healthy or to do, to keep ourselves alive. Then you would think that we would be focused on doing whatever it takes to eliminate the thing that kills us the most. Uh, and that's kind of some of what the movie talks about, and kind of the what the health part of it is kind of like, why are that when he goes to the American Cancer Society's website and and all of these other, the American with Diabetes associations, and he goes and he calls these hotlines, and it's kind of weird that he does, but he knows he's not going to get the answers that he's looking for from the people he's calling, but he's calling up and being like, there's study after study that says having dairy is not going to help you with your breast cancer or any cancer or things like that. And but we look on your website, and one of the options or one of the foods you recommend as safe for people that have these conditions has products in it that show, that studies have shown have had, issues with. The guy from the diabetes that he talked to just walked out of the interview, which was crazy. And I think they were like, even in that guy's office, it looked like, and he just walked out of his own office because he did not want to continue with the line of questioning uh, about how diet could help with eliminating diabetes. Uh, and so it was just crazy. But yeah, anyways, the movie was good to see that. Some of his approaches were a little goofy. It got what he was trying to kind of show in the end. The surprising part, and part of the reason why I think I've seen segments of this or heard about it more, is that uh, the they don't like uh, they don't highlight the True North Clinic, but that Dr. Alan Goldhammer, who was one of the founders of the True North Clinic, is in the movie. And then there are two women, uh, at least two of the people, and there was a few people they had testimonials about switching to a whole food plant based diet and the benefits they had. And like I said, two of them for sure were people that stayed at the True North Clinic, because they reference that they were, there for 2 weeks. And one of them, within 2 weeks of switching to this diet, was off of all of the medications that they were on before. And that was another thing, like while the movie was going on, and there was an older gentleman that they were going through his pills, like what he took daily for pills. And he had like 8 Ziploc bags of different pills that he had for, he had pills to help keep blood pressure down or regulate these other things, but then he was taking pills so that the side effects from the pills he was taking to help with other things weren't too bad. And so like we were watching it and this guy was going through all that stuff, and I looked at Carrie and I was like, I am just so happy that we've decided to make these changes before we were on regiments like that guy was on with pills, because there, who knows how much different stuff he's putting in his body and what those chemicals are damaging while they're in there, and so that was another thing, and then those people were very much, like wishing that they'd have done it sooner. One of the ladies was in like near tears with how much her life, and in 2 weeks, like she was walking around with a walker and like could barely walk, and then 2 weeks later they're walking down a sidewalk together, interviewing, and it just how much uh, difference it can make. Carrie was saying here that it's crazy to see how much people protect themselves from COVID, but do so little to protect themselves from heart disease. Yeah, and yeah, it's just tough to, because it's really weird because we're on the other side of it now. But 7 months ago, I was one of those people that was, that was uh, worried more about COVID than I was worried about heart disease. And the truth, yeah, I mean, the yeah, like I said, that's it's crazy that many more people die from heart disease, and it's just like a normal thing, or it's just kind of it's accepted at this point because that's just one of the ways people die. And it's just so weird. Like, and it'll be interesting to see how it plays out over, large swaths of time. But like 150 years ago, I don't think people were dying of heart disease like they are now. And hopefully 150 years from now, there is no heart disease. Like we figured out whatever we need to do, or we found a way to have food without risking those conditions. Uh, but but yeah, it's so yeah, that was the movie we watched, and Carrie was listening to that podcast. I talked a little bit yesterday about having some photos pop up in my like social media feed from 5 years ago, and kind of seeing the photos and just kind of how weird it was. And I'll pop one or two I'll pop a couple up here. So this one here is a photo. This is 5 years ago. I would have been in the 400s somewhere, because so 3 or 4 years prior to that, I was my lightest ever as an adult. I was at 285, and then I was creeping up. But yeah, so we had gone to these caves to check this out. In fact, I had fasted. This was long before I did any fasting ever. Um, but I missed that shirt. I see that shirt now, and I'm like, where does that shirt at? That was a big shirt. It says it's a big bear face with a beard on it, and then it says uh, beard on it. On the right there, you can't really see it there, but yeah, like seeing this photo, I kind of am at a nice angle that it doesn't show off my gut, too terribly bad. I'm sideways. The big thing though, and I guess you probably can't see my cursor when it's on the screen, but um, my right leg is started, it's got a little bit of that swelling going. You can see it starting, but it wasn't kind of till after I got bigger that I think that swelling got worse. Let me see if I can maybe zoom in on just that. But yeah, you can see a little bit of it there, but at some point it's that all fills in, or that all kind of yeah, getting that all back. So I'm gonna throw that back up there. And then I had another photo from that same time, just kind of again, I was making it through or surviving, but I know that it was a rough day overall, just because there was a lot of walking that we were doing at the caves here before we went back to where we were. Um, and so those were just a couple photos that I kind of mentioned yesterday that I would share. And when I was going through looking at my social media, as a big person, I don't have a lot of photos of myself that are published. I probably have a bunch on my phone, or Carrie probably has a bunch on her phone of me. But I was going through all of my different or going through the old photos of me and photos I've taken. And there was one other photo I took, and I don't really know. Uh, it's not an awful photo. It's probably more recent than this one is, but it was kind of the whole thing behind it, or what was going on. So this is here it is. So this is me here 3 or 4 years ago. Again, I'm in the 400-pound range. The reason why this photo kind of struck me was because when I was doing this, so we were selling fireworks. It was something that we had did for a year or two, just to see if we could make any money at it. And so but the reason why this photo struck me was because I remember it was a big deal that we were selling fireworks because they had just become legal in the state that year. And so I had a TV um I had a TV reporter come to the office and interview me, and uh, it was such a weird thing. I can remember being so embarrassed about how big I was, because I think what had happened probably was I've been on TV a few times throughout my life. When I was in high school, maybe getting interviewed for whatever, and then different events, things like that. Uh, and I had shown the video a while back when I got interviewed on like a local, um, there's like a local live show that it's kind of lady has local people on, and I was interviewed in 2013 on that show about how much weight I had lost by following this doctor's protocol. We didn't really talk about it in the interview, but I was taking phentermine, and I had started out with taking human HGH injections and things like that. And so I think that it was kind of one of those things where from 2013 until this, when I was doing this, uh, I hadn't been like on camera where people would be sharing it, saying, "Oh, hey, John," or where I would want to share it, say, "Hey, I was on the news today," if anybody wanted to see it. And so, like I said, the previous time that I was like, "Hey, I was on the news," it was me celebrating being, losing all that weight and being 285 pounds, and saying I had the world by, I had it all figured out. I was never going to get fat again. And then fast forward 3, 4, 5 years, and then, I'm over 400 pounds, probably in the 450s at that time. You avoid a scale, you don't, and, but I just saw that in my news feed, and it just reminded me of how embarrassed I was that day doing that interview. And like I was uh I was seated for the interview too, which was weird. It was like the only time I'd ever like sat down for an interview, but it was probably just because of my breathing. And you can tell I'm just like this. I mean, this isn't from the specific day I was interviewed, but that was the outfit I was wearing kind of through that period of time. And just how sweaty I was too, because selling fireworks in the middle of the summer is really bad. Um, Carrie says avoid the camera at all costs. She still feels that way soon though. And then Caleb, don't feel like any of these photos are bad photos for what it's worth. You can definitely relate to the feeling though. You hate having pictures taken for that reason. Yeah, no, and it was funny too is that the two photos that I popped up before, this one and this one here, yeah, these two, um, they I'm kind of at a good angle on both of these, especially this one, as far as like, and then my butt's kind of back as well. I don't know if I'm sucking it in so you can't see my gut sticking out, but yeah, no, I thought the same. They're not. I don't look awful in them, but I just the remembering the what was going through my mind at the time or what was going on at the time, and that was more of what I was talking about with these. So yeah, but the just and it also sucks too that like we're kind of all saying that we feel the same way, that we don't allow photos to be taken of us, which means that there's not a lot of photos. There's not a lot of photos of this time period of me with my kids. Like we have a couple photos that we have had, kind of have the same person who did our wedding photos. Every few years we've hired them to do photos of our kids, and we never plan on being in the photos, and then we're always in a couple of them, which in the end I'm sure we will appreciate, but we never feel like we're really into it. Caleb, can you speak to your experience with phentermine? What was that like? Phentermine was very effective. I mean, that I can't the the yeah. So just to kind of run through what that was, because it's been a while since I talked about it. So 2013, I met with the doctor who was a weight loss clinic doctor, or medical weight loss group was the name of the place. And he talked about having, you know, losing weight and ways to lose weight. And so I went and I met with him. And it was, it was, he talked a lot about it being mental and not being a victim or people playing the role of the victim. And those are all like important aspects of it. And it was really nice. Like we had a weekly group meetings that we would go to, that people could talk about what was going on with them. And I really liked going to those meetings. um, but the things with the phentermine. So when I was taking phentermine, I would do, I think it's like a half pill in the morning and a half pill midday. It was what I was taking throughout the 9 months. I think it was one of those things where I took phentermine for as long as the doctor was comfortable with allowing or prescribing somebody to take phentermine. And the same thing happened with ephedra a decade ago with Advocare. But uh, so, anyways, the phentermine was extremely effective at curbing my appetite, my you know the diet. I stuck to a super low calorie diet. And it was an awful diet. It was not a healthy diet by any means, but I was eating less than 1,000 calories a day, probably, every day at least. In some cases, I was eating less on other days. Um, the uh, Overall, in the 9 months, I went from 415 pounds to about 385 pounds. So I went from, sorry, 415 to 285. So I lost like 130 pounds or around. Yeah, it was. Um, and so uh, I lost the weight very quickly. It was really nice to lose the weight. I felt amazing. I felt like I had everything figured out. And then uh, a couple things happened. I couldn't continue to take the phentermine anymore. I was going to have to like cycle off of it for a period of time before I could get back on it. And then the other thing was that um, the other thing with the phentermine was there was two things. Oh, I got to what I felt was my goal. I got down to 285. That was my goal when I started, that I wanted to get down to like under 300. 285 was like the number I had in my head. And I saw that on a scale one day, and so it was kind of something where it flipped a switch in my head that I was like, all right, I did what I wanted to do, and I never learned how to eat. And that would be um the thing. So you say, wow, that was a huge loss. Yeah, I mean, you can look into it. The biggest drawback for me and what I learned from that's got, that I'm um going off of now is that well, a couple things is that it kind of proved to me that I didn't have to have a lot of food to survive. So that made fasting a little bit easier mentally. But uh, that entire 9 month period, I never learned how to eat. I never learned what diet I should eat the rest of my life. As a means to lose weight, it was very successful, but it was not successful in its end result. It didn't fix the problems I had with my diet. And so uh, I ended up gaining, I was 415 then. I got up to 480. I fasted and lost some weight from that a year and a half ago, but didn't do the right thing after that either. And then I got up to 520. So 8 years later, after doing the phentermine and thinking I had it figured out and being like, I'm never gonna be fat again. 8 years later, I'm that fat and another 100 pounds. So um, that would be what I would caution. And then it's just that it never taught me anything about food or anything about uh, proper nutrition. It just taught me that I didn't need a lot of food and my body would burn off the extra calories. And that's kind of where I got the million calorie challenge that I've talked about, where I look at the excess body fat on my, that on me as a big bank account of stored calories. And that was kind of when I first started thinking about that, was when I was, eating the 600 to 800 calorie diet. Um, yeah. So Carrie's saying, so no matter how you lose the weight, you have to make sure you know how to eat to maintain your weight, or you have to eat. And that was coming out of this, what I've learned that I've brought forward for myself is that I feel like it's, uh, I want to lose weight as fast as possible. And that's why I've done the fasting, and it has worked great to lose weight very quickly. But if you want to be 220 pounds, you have to eat like a 220-pound person eats. And I think that uh, I never do that. So when I'm eating my normal diet, I'm eating like a 500-pound person. I'm eating all kinds of, whatever, just calorie, 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 calorie. And then when I'm dieting, I'm eating like an anorexic 90 pounder. Like, or I'm eating like somebody who's 120 pounds eats, so that I can lose weight as fast as possible and just get that, to go down. And so then at the end of it, when I hit my goal, I know how to eat like a 500-pound person, and I know how to eat like a 120-pound person, but I don't know how to eat like a 200-pound person. And if I was patient enough to just eat like a 200-pound person eats, eventually I'll get to be 200 pounds. But it takes a lot of patience to do that. and it's something that I don't have a ton of, and that's why I did the fasting. Carrie's definitely more on that path of eating. She eats like a 160-pound woman eats. Eventually, she'll be a 160-pound woman, and that's uh, one of the things that I've taken from that, and also that the for me a big part of this is that it is 100% me doing it. It's my mind, it's my um just it's not any medical intervention. It's not, when I was a sophomore in college, Advocare was really starting to make it big or become a big thing because it had ephedrine in it. As soon as they took that out of there, I just I did not succeed with that. But while I was having those drugs, I did great with that. Um, Fast forward to the doctors thing I was talking about with the phentermine. I had great success with the phentermine. Again, it wasn't me doing it. It was me doing it. I was taking the credit for the weight loss, but the drugs were really helping with the process. And so for me, uh, I really want to make this about me doing it and not any drugs doing it, not any surgeries doing it. It's just my mentality and my ability to 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 do what I think is the right thing. How do you gauge what a normal diet would look like for a 200-pound person? It's tough because for me with the whole food plant based diet, it's so tough to overeat calories. Like, even if I binge on the worst thing possible that we have, I'm still not going to get a huge number of calories because um, I think of things more with the volume of the food. And it was something that I had um, heard in one of the movies or one of I believe it was a movie and it wasn't a book, but they talk about that the average person's stomach is the average stomach is supposed to be about the size of a 1 liter bottle. And so you're supposed to fill that up 3 times in a day is what would be like a full meal. And so sometimes when we have a salad, that would fill up most of this 3 liter bottle, But as far as like a calorie number, I can't put an exact number because there's going to be different recommendations from different people. Um, but I know that uh, and then I guess the other thing is that um, I don't know exactly what it is yet because I haven't got there. I haven't reached that goal. I know that I am still probably overeating for based like I probably eat more than a 200-pound person who eats a whole food plant based diet eats, but I'm still losing weight, which is great. So I can't exactly say what it's going to be because I haven't done it yet. I'm still trying to learn what that diet's going to be, but I know what the diet is not. I know that it is not going to Taco Bell and getting 3 burritos for breakfast and then hitting up McDonald's for a burger, a chicken sandwich, and some fries for lunch, and then getting a bag of candy on the way home, uh, and then eating 2 or 3 portions of dinner. I know that that is not the answer because that is how I got to 520 pounds. But um, I'm slowly figuring it out, I guess. I'm trying to use that leader gauge as a, a measuring tool in my head when I'm eating and I'm sitting there going, have I eaten too much? And I try to think about it in terms of volume, and I have to be like, well, yeah, it probably got to be a little much there. Um, but and I can show you. I'll try to do a slideshow. It's tough for me to. Or I haven't figured it out. Like I have to upload all these images individually on this system. If I can figure out how to load up like a series of photos, I took a bunch of photos over the past week of just all of the different things that we've eaten, and I can kind of talk about what of those I've eaten in a day or how much I've eaten of those things. Um, Carrie says the kids sure miss the candy man. Yeah, yeah, that used to be kind of a thing. I would uh, I'd buy candy, and I think that it was really it was I would buy the kids candy, so I felt less bad about getting candy for myself at the store, because the candy that the kids saw is really only a fraction of the actual candy that was purchased, because I would either eat it uh, on my way home. I would buy a couple candy bars, and I'd eat one on the way home, and then I would have a candy for the kids, and then I would have a candy bar that I would eat in front of the kids. I'd be okay with eating one candy bar in front of them, but I wouldn't eat two candy bars in front of them. So I would eat the one candy bar on the way home, or I would have, or the I've talked about it in the past. When I first started the fast, I had a candy bar that I had stored in the sunglass thing of my van. And I was like 2 weeks into the fast, and the sun was in my eyes, and I was just checking to see maybe if I had uh, sunglasses in there, and a candy bar fell out. In fact, it was this candy bar right here, fell on my lap. I hadn't eaten for like 2 weeks, and then all of a sudden, I dropped a candy bar on my lap, and I was kind of yeah, the old me was an asshole setting myself up like that. So, um, but yeah, I used to buy candy all the time, and it would be a thing for me. It was nothing for me to eat a candy bar or a couple candy bars, and in fact, the diet I was on with the phentermine, and I've talked about it in the past too, but I was eating like 600 to 800 calories. I would not eat anything all day until I went home from work. And on my way home from work, I would stop at the gas station. I would buy a small can of Pringles and a Kit Kat bar, a regular one. And then I'd go home and I would eat like a Polish sausage or a hot dog of some sort, essentially, or like a kielbasa. Uh, and that was my diet for weeks on end. Like during the weeks, like Monday through Friday. Like I would come home. I had already had eaten my Pringles and my Kit Kat on the way home, and I would eat the kielbasa that we microwaved or heated up, and that would be my 600 to 1,000 calories, and I lost weight that way. I lost a lot of weight. I had people on TV about it. I had people asking me how I was doing it, and the whole time it was kind of weird, because I, and I would tell people at the time, 8 years ago, I was telling them I just wasn't eating. It's what I quit eating is what I would tell people. I'm like, oh, that's awful. You can't not eat. You got to eat something. Um, and then fast forward 8 years, and I go 42 days without eating, and I lose 90 pounds. And so, um, but at the time, like I didn't want to admit what I was eating, so I would just tell them, "Oh, I just cutting way back, calorie cutting, But I would never tell anybody the content of my diet. I mean, I could have I could have wrote a book, the Pringle and Kit Kat diet, and I'd be rich now. Just Pringles, Kit Kat with a side of phentermine, and you're good to go. But I'm really happy that I'm not doing those things anymore. And when I hear about all the thing, the and just it's weird too because I'm thinking about that movie we watched and just how like there's information that it's been presented to us as if it's fact that we don't even question anymore, and it might not be as factual as you thought, or there's things like they talked about the diabetes, that like diabetes doesn't come from sugar, it comes from fat consumption, and I would not have uh thought that or really known that, or but I was never diagnosed with diabetes, so it wasn't something I really researched or I know a ton about. But anyways, holy cow. I really got going on today. Uh so it's Tuesday. Tomorrow will be weigh-in Wednesday. I am going to get out of here. I want to thank you guys for checking out the broadcast. If you haven't already, make sure that you subscribe to my channel. And click on the bell to turn on notifications. I have an Instagram account that is at Fasting. That's FAHSTING. Carrie says it is infuriating. Yes, that the information that people, that's presented as fact, or that we're and a big joke they make in the whole movie is where do you get your protein? And so it's just kind of funny. But and then the Discord. If you haven't joined the Discord already, we'd love to have you join the Discord. It is down in the description below. You can hop on there, and Carrie shares a lot of the menu stuff, and you can just let us know what's going on with you, and if you guys have any questions for me that you would feel more comfortable asking on the Discord, I would be willing to answer those. I know somebody was on there asking about some meat alternatives, and it was great to have somebody else kind of answer, because me and Carrie really don't know much about some of those things because we haven't had them. We've fed our kids some of those things, but we have not had them. So it was good to have somebody else answer that. But anyways, I'm going to get out of here, and I will be on tomorrow for weigh-in Wednesday. It'll be a good one, I hope. And if it's not, well, then next week will be a good one. All right, everybody have a good day. Thanks for stopping in, Caleb, too. You have a nice evening, too.